Hello and welcome back to Seagulls Central. My name is Adam MacDonald and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, welcome along. If you've been here before, welcome back. This is Seagulls Central, the best Brighton Hove Albion YouTube channel, fan channel and community out there. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. If you're part of the 73% of regular viewers who don't subscribe to the channel but still watch my videos, please join the club and hit subscribe. It helps us continue to do these videos so regularly to help, it just helps me kind of get along my way in building this channel and trying to be as consistent as I can. And I really appreciate all the people who comment, like, honestly, this community, I feel so grateful for all of you who comment regularly, watch regularly, whether I've seen your name in the comments, whether I haven't. Honestly, I'm just grateful that so many people are watching these videos, getting involved, getting excited around the conversation. And I guess it's an exciting time, isn't it? It's a brand new season. A lot of new signings and a lot to get into. Here, today's video is going to be really weird and going to be really interesting. Can you tell it's the off season by the title of this video? We're having to go a little bit rogue, but I thought it's quite just an interesting concept. And I guess what it does is it takes us into a bit more of a, maybe it's a little bit more meaningful. It's kind of symbolic of where we are in our times, that this is something we can do. And look, what I'm doing today is I'm going to be predicting Brighton's season using ChatGPT, using AI. And what I've done is basically I've said, as of kind of early July, give me, and the squad that you've got on your records on early July and all the information you can gather around Brighton Hove Albion as of this date, tell me the following stats. And this is what I've done. I've asked for the player of the season. I've asked for top scorer, top assister, young player of the season, flop of the season, and then I asked for give me a rogue prediction of what's going to happen. Just one thing that will happen in the season that's completely rogue. Now, honestly, some of the replies are actually kind of, believable, plausible. Some of them are just absolutely insane. But I think it's funny, isn't it? Because I use ChatGPT in my day-to-day life. It's kind of become something that I've replaced Google, really. I talk to my ChatGPT on my phone, the app. I find it so interesting and so useful. However, it is still very, very inaccurate a lot of the time. And I think this is an example of how inaccurate it can be with some of the answers that it's pulled up. When I put these in, you're just going to laugh. But I think hopefully what we're going to be able to do is actually open up a bit of a conversation around who will be the player of the season, who will be the top scorer, who will be the top assister, and then we can kind of look into that a little bit more. So let's get into it. Right, so let's start with the first one. And this is top scorer, ChatGPT. I asked it, who will be Brighton's top scorer in 2025-2026? Are you ready for this? This is who they've said. Brighton's top scorer for the 2025-2026 season will be Malik Yalkoulié. Jesus wept, honestly. So I'll read out what they've said about it. Yalkoulié will finish the season as Brighton's top scorer in all competitions, with João Pedro gone and no elite striker signed yet. Yalkoulé's late runs from midfield and finishing will see him net 13 goals across league and cup matches. Insane that, isn't it? It's insane. Look, Malik Yalkoulié is he's definitely got a case to make for himself this pre-season. I spoke about it in the video on Monday around how I think he is one of the players who this pre-season will be quite big for. I think we're going to see him have an opportunity in some games. We saw him impress last season in Japan, obviously in Austria on loan as well. But the idea that he's going to be our top scorer is just absolutely ridiculous. The guy probably, they say he's going to get 13 goals. I think he'd be lucky to get 13 starts if he even actually stays in the squad if Brighton don't decide to just immediately send him out on loan next season. Let him get 13 goals. Unless this becomes some crazy situation where with João Pedro gone, the number 9 free, who do we give it to? A bit like the Steve Sidwell thing at Chelsea. We give it to Yalkoulié, who become our number 9, obviously not playing number 9. But yeah, silly really. I think for me, if we're going to be realistic about it, who's going to be our top scorer? I don't know. I think last season, obviously, we had a mix. 10 goals scored in the Premier League was the top scorer. Mitoma got that. Welbeck got that. I think João Pedro got that as well. I'm going to go out rogue this season, and I'm going to say, this is so hard. Who's going to be our top scorer? I'm going to go either one of Jorginho Rutter or Yankuba Minteh. they will be our top scorer next season. Forget Malik Yalkule. Sorry, mate. It's not going to be you. I think both of those players had brilliant first seasons, but I think this season's going to be the year they come into their own, particularly with Jorginho Rutter. I think he's going to have that responsibility. We've obviously said before he's got that talismanic way about him where he can lead the line, he can score goals in big moments. I think we're going to be seeing him play that João Pedro role next season as the kind of one of the focal points in the attack alongside Danny Welbeck. I think Minteh as well. I love how clinical he is for a young player, someone obviously who is still developing, but I do think he will be the player that we really rely on that right wing next season. Him on the right, Mitoma on the left, other players supporting them. I think one of him or Jorginho Rutter will be the player of the season, and it probably won't be Malik Yalkule. I do feel bad for him, but it's just definitely not going to be him, is it? Right, should we move on to the next one? Let's see what ChatGPT is saying. So, top assister. I think this one, to be honest, is a little bit more reasonable. Top assister, Kaoru Mitoma. This is what they say. It's like ChatGPT kind of. Well, I was going to say that it's like they only know the kind of big players when you see some of the stuff it says later on. But like maybe the fact it says Malik Yalkule actually is a little bit against that point. Anyway. Top assister, Kaoru Mitoma. Mitoma will lead the team in assists. Yeah, cheers, all right. His pace, one-on-one threat, and delivery from wide areas will yield 12 assists in the Premier League. He'll be Brighton's most creative outlet. I think, look, this is reasonable. I think him getting 12 assists is quite unlikely. I don't think any Brighton player next season is going to get 12 assists. I'd love to have known what was Pascal Gross like peak stats in terms of getting assists in a season. 12 assists is a good amount of assists, and I don't think we've necessarily got one player in the squad who's going to be coming out kind of getting us a bulk load of assists. I think Kaoru Mitoma, one of the criticisms I had of Kaoru Mitoma in recent kind of months, and even in the last year or so, was that I thought he was a brilliant player, but whilst he's great at getting up us the field, he's not a prolific goal scorer, a prolific assister. Sometimes he'll get to the bar and you think, come on, mate, what are you going to do? And he's so great at changing momentum and changing games and getting us up the field and getting bodies forward. But actually, in terms of physically being productive and create and being an outlet for goals, I didn't think he was brilliant. In the last 6 months or so, I think I've been completely proven wrong on that point. He's added goals to his game. He's added assists. He's added that real firepower to him. He could easily be our top assister next season. I don't think he's going to get 12 assists. I think there are many players in this squad who could become our top assist makers. I think someone like a Rutter, again, is a very strong candidate for that. A Minteh, again, very strong candidate for that. We've got many options. I think someone even like a Gruder or an Ayari has a ability to kind of do that as well. Kadioglu, if he gets minutes. De Cuypers as well. Like, we've got many different options. Kaoru Mitoma feels like the safe bet that ChatGPT's gone for. He very much could be. I don't think it's going to be 12 assists in any way, shape or form. Right, let's move on to the next one. This is where I think it gets a little bit weirder again, okay? So then I've asked for, who's Brighton's player of the season going to be? This is what they've said. Brighton's player of the season will be Tommy Watson. Interesting. I mean, if this has happened, this would be crazy. Watson will make at least 20 senior appearances in the Premier League. Is that enough to win Player of the Season? Probably not. And will win Brighton's official Player of the Season award. His directness and tactical maturity will cement his place in the rotation by December. So, ChatGPT suggesting that our Player of the Season isn't going to actually be a firm fixture in our squad until December, and then after that he's going to, just have the best second season that you've ever seen of any player ever. Look, I think Tommy Watson's a really interesting one. He's obviously not, he might be. He might be our Player of the Season next season. I'm really excited about what he can offer. I think that left-hand side has been something where we've over-relied on Kaoru Mitoma in recent years, at least in the last year, 18 months or so. When he's not been fit, who have we kind of had there? We've had João Pedro, who isn't really a winger. We've seen Simon Adingra, who is a left winger, but he's never really nailed it down for Brighton, particularly in the last season or so. We've seen Gruder play out there. I remember in a game about 18 months ago, we saw Milner play out on the left wing. We've had some weird options in terms of wingers. And I think what this Tommy Watson signing does is it provides a genuine left wing option to compete with Kaoru Mitoma, someone who can run at players. His style is actually very similar to Kaoru Mitoma in terms of being able to run at players, take players on 1v1, dribble us up the field, gain momentum, gain territory. I think he's going to be a player who will be a very nice like-for-like player on that left wing. And I think he's going to have a very, very prominent and useful role to play next season. Is he going to be our player of the season? Very, very unlikely that he will. However, if that was something like who's going to be our young player of the season, I wouldn't think that's too crazy a shout, because I think it's very likely he could come in. And yes, we've got a lot of great young players and we've signed a few great young players as well. But I actually think at his age and what he's doing in the Championship and what we can see he can do on the ball, and the way that actually it's going to provide us with a bit of freedom to rotate the front line a little bit, I think he provides us with a really, really good option next season. And who knows, maybe he could get a young player of the season, but I think player of the season, it's a little bit crazy from ChatGPT to say that one. Right, let's go on to our next one. Okay, this one's interesting. So I went for breakout star. So I guess when I was thinking of this, I was kind of thinking of like a young player of the year, or even just like one of the new signings who's like broken through, like who's going to have, or maybe someone who's not had a brilliant season last season. You think of like a Weaver or someone who is going to really break out and step up into the mould this coming season. This one's interesting. Breakout star, Diego Coppola. So it is up to date with its stats. It doesn't know the squad, to be fair to it. Coppola will emerge as Brighton's starting centre-back. By mid-season, he'll displace at least one of Lewis Dunk or Jan-Paul van Hecke and become a key part of Fabian Hürzeler's back line, praised for his composure and aerial dominance. Now, to be honest, I don't think that's too wrong, in the sense that I think it's very likely Coppola will be a breakout star next season. The second part of that description that ChatGPT gave that, I think, is where it's fallen short. He's not going to displace Jan-Paul van Hecke, and to be honest, he might displace a Dunk. I think that is fair enough, but the idea that he's going to be like by far and away, he's going to come in and like Dunk's going to be, whisked to the side, nowhere to be seen because of Coppola's sheer brilliance, I don't think we're going to see that. I think we'll probably start the season with a back three, just because Hürzeler wants to kind of set that as his marker for the new season, and we'll probably see Lewis Dunk in that starting 11. I think maybe by the first kind of quarter point of the season, we may see Lewis Dunk lose his place. And I think maybe if injuries play into that, I think Coppola, Boscagli, Van Hecke in a back three will be the go-to option. However, with that said, that isn't necessary to say that Lewis Dunk's going to have a bit part role. I've seen a lot of a lot of comments on social media around how people think Lewis Dunk, this is like he's going to be literally bench warming all season. He's not going to have a sniff getting in the side. I think lots of people, maybe not you watching, but a lot of people on social media will be slightly surprised at the role that Lewis Dunk is still going to play. I think he's still going to have a fairly big role in guiding that back line. I think he'll be a brilliant player, either sitting on the left-hand side or sitting centrally, particularly centrally in a back three. I could really see it like a real kind of sweeper kind of player. I think he'd be brilliant kind of dictating the play from the middle. He can even step out a little bit as well. Coppola seems to be able to do that. Van Hecke can do that. I would probably prefer someone a bit more. I really like the look of Coppola being in the middle of a back three next season. I know some people have said he might be on the right or the left, but I think I really like the idea of Coppola being in the middle. I think he could easily be the standout star, the breakthrough star next season. I don't think that's actually too weird of ChatGPT to say. And I think he's likely to have a very, very good season next season. Right, let's move on. Let's see. So then, a few more that I asked for. So, biggest flop. So there's quite a few biggest flops we could have gone for. Obviously, Brian obviously signed quite a few players. Kostoulas, Tzimas, Tommy Watson, Boscagli, Coppola, De Cuypers. A lot of new players are coming in. Interesting, this is what they've said around biggest flop. ChatGPT has gone for Olivier Boscagli. Mad. Can he be a flop if you come in on a free transfer? I don't know. Like, if does the flop element kind of, is it just like coming in and doing really badly, or is it like you can only really be a flop if you spend loads of money? I don't really know. I feel like you can still be a flop if you're a free transfer. Anyway, Boscagli will fail. This is according to ChatGPT. Boscagli will fail, as though it's like going to happen. Boscagli will fail to establish himself as a regular starter. Not sure about that. Maybe, I don't know. I think he will establish himself as a regular starter. And he'll make fewer than 10 league appearances. Oh my God. His lack of pace and struggles in adapting to the Premier League will see him fall behind Coppola, Dunk, Webster and Igor in the pecking order. Interesting. So where's Van Hecke in that? Is Van Hecke then behind all of them? So the pecking order goes Coppola, Dunk, Webster, Igor, Boscagli, Van Hecke. Fair. Okay. That doesn't make sense at all. If anything, you could really say we're a little bit more going in the reverse order for that. You're probably going to have Van Hecker at the top, Boscagli near enough the top, Coppola, Dunk, Webster, Igor. I think that's how it's, and Cashin. I think that's kind of how it's looking. I'm really excited about Boscagli. I think there's a few elements. One, the left-footed element. I think getting players, left-footed central defenders, is really difficult. And he's a really nice mix. We're not going for a really young teenager who's not got much experience. We're going for a 27-year-old who's won a league title, who's played in the Champions League, who's captained his side, captained a big club in PSV Eindhoven as well. And we've got him for really decent money. He's fantastic on the ball, the way that he can ping the ball, switch the ball. Some of those balls up into our strikers and our wingers, you can think about it up into Mitoma next season. It's going to be really, really interesting to see. He's got a fantastic ability on the ball. He's very calm and composed. Look, adapting to the Premier League might be difficult, but you can see he's got the physicality. He's got clearly the leadership element to him. And he does feel like a bit of it feels to me like he might be a kind of a next-gen Dunk for us, coming in, a real leadership quality. He even kind of looks like him a little bit, but left-footed. I think that left-footed element is so, so crucial. And the fact that we're getting him on a free, a left-footed central defender with experience, brilliant business. I would be shocked if he was the biggest flop of the season. Of all of the players that we've brought in this summer, I think he's the least likely to be a flop, considering the positions that we've brought in. And I think it's harder to be a flop as a centre-back, really, isn't it? You can just be like, okay, but I think being a flop. So I think ChatGPT's got it very, very wrong there. Olivier Boscagli being the flop of the season, I really do not think so. Right, let's move on to the final two things. Final league position. Now, I think this one's a little bit more, this kind of makes sense. I think Brighton are going to do better than what ChatGPT have said here, though. Final league position, 8th. Brighton will finish 8th in the Premier League. Hürzeler's system will produce consistent performances, but inconsistency in front of goal and a congested fixture schedule will prevent them from cracking the top 7. Cracking the top 7, the famous top 7 that needs to be cracked. Interesting. It feels like they have literally just taken what's the generic kind of problem that a team might have in terms of not being able to have a brilliant season. Scoring goals, okay. So they're going to have inconsistency in front of goals and a congested fixture schedule. They've just gone for the two most generic reasons for why a team might not have a brilliant season. I think Brighton will probably do better than that. I've got a real feeling this season Brighton are going to finish somewhere 6th. I think they'll get into the Europa League. I think with the squad we've got, the additions we've made, the experience we've got, the height, the size we've got, the technical quality, the depth in attack, and the depth across the whole pitch that we have, keeping players like Mitoma, having Rutter in a second season, I think we're going to have a really, really exciting side next season, coupled with the fact that lots of teams around us are occupied with Europe. I think Brighton could genuinely get a top 6 finish this season. And look, who knows? You never know. Each season, there's always the worry that this will be the one season that everything goes wrong. And maybe that will be the case. And maybe Hürzeler will get sacked by Christmas. But I do feel really optimistic about this season. I think the squad we've got, the players we've got, the experience we've got. And, it's Hürzeler's second season now. We're ready to kind of take things to the next level. So they've said 8th. I'm going to predict 6th. So let's move on to the final thing. So I wanted to ask it, basically. I basically said, give me just not the top scorer, not the top assister, not a position. Just give me a prediction. Just say something random. Just pick something that's going to happen just pick me one thing that's going to happen that no one will expect. This is what they've said. This is just stupid. Lewis Dunk will be dropped. Okay? Lewis Dunk will be dropped and stripped of the captaincy by November 2025. So where are we now? July, August, September, October, November. 4 months' time, he's going to be stripped of the captaincy. What's going to happen? What's the scandal going to be? ChatGPT says, Fabian Hürzeler will make a bold, ruthless decision to phase out club legend Lewis Dunk from the starting 11 due to declining pace and difficulty in adapting to Brighton's new high line and high-pressing defensive system. By November, Diego Coppola and Igor Julio will be the starting centre-back pairing. The armband, here we go, will be handed permanently to Pascal Gross, signalling a generational and tactical shift. Dunk will remain at the club, but will play a reduced role, making just a handful of appearances in the second half of the season, mainly in domestic cups. Now, oh my God, What do you think the weirder thing about that whole situation there is? Do you think it's a suggestion that Diego Coppola will be paired in a back two with Igor Julio? That's pretty mental. Do you think it's the fact that Lewis Dunk's going to lose the captaincy? Why would you lose the captaincy? I find that a little bit mental. And then who are they going to replace it with? I mean, it would be the comeback of all comebacks for Igor, but I think it would be an even bigger, even greater comeback if we saw Pascal Gross re-signed, let's say on the final day of the window. He comes back from Dortmund. He comes back and gets the club captaincy within a couple of months after Lewis Dunk fails to pin down his sport. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's probably the most unlikely one of all of them. Lewis Dunk, I think a lot's been made, and I spoke about it earlier in this video, a lot's been made, I think, of Lewis Dunk's future. People talking about maybe this will be one where his role really changes, and perhaps it will, perhaps his role will change. However, I still am of the view that he's going to have a big part to play. He's going to be a big influence. I think if we do play a back three, I think he's absolutely got a role to play. I think actually, if he's going to be a little bit more protected, we might see the best of Lewis Dunk. You know, the amount of times over the years we've seen him be at best when he's like sitting deep, spraying the ball, chesting the ball back to the keeper, last-ditch tackles, controlling the line, you know, leading us from the back. I think he's still going to have a big part to play, and injuries, all of these things play a part in it. Obviously, he's going to be the captain. He's going to be the captain of this club until the day he retires or the day he decides to leave the club. Maybe Pascal Gross will re-sign. I think the idea that he re-signs and takes the captaincy of Dunk is never going to happen in a really million years. So, look, it's quite fun to do that with AI, but what I think it does show is like how really wrong it can be, and how even when you ask it to be up to date with this information, it's not. What it kind of does, though, is it creates nice conversations for us around where we think this season's going. I think it makes you realise that actually this player they predicted is going to be the player of the season, but they're not actually going to have as much of a role. It kind of gives you a bit of clarity in your mind about where you think things are going to be going. I'd love to know what you think. Who's going to be our player of the season? Who's going to be our top scorer? Who's going to be our top assist maker? Where are we going to finish? Who's going to be the breakout star? What's one rogue prediction that you have for next season? I really want to know. Do you think we're going to see Danny Welbeck score 20 goals? Do you think we're going to see Carlos Baleba score a worldie every game? What do you think it's going to be? I really want to know what your prediction is. Is Fabian Hürzeler going to get sacked? Like, what's going to happen? Put your most rogue prediction in the description, in the comments below, to show me that you made it this far in the video. It's a bit of fun. It's a little bit mental, but it gets the juices flowing. It gets the thoughts going. Can you tell it's the off season? I think you probably can. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe in this video. Drop us a like, drop us a comment. Let us know you've made it this far. I will see you on the next one. And as always, up the Albion.